Content Catchup.
Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else out there listening, we're really lucky today because we've got one of my favourite people in the world, mostly known as Cripsy, to his family and friends known as James. We're lucky to be joined by Cripsy here today, ladies and gentlemen. Cripsy, before we get into it, just a little bit of a background. I want to... sorry, my cat's also losing his shit from playing with something he hasn't played with in months, but a bit of background here. So, Cripsy and I worked together during the lockdown period, and the way it came about is that Cripsy, out of the goodness of his heart, has his own massive Twitch channel, didn't need Carlton at all, but reached out to us and said, hey, I would love to host a stream for you and get you set up on Twitch. And after, I reckon, about 6 or 7 weeks of persistence on his end, we finally got it over the line. And he did a massive job in helping us create some content during the lockdown period that was really fresh and gave fans a great way to engage. So, and ever since then, we've been chatting on and off. And anyway, I'd like to introduce one of the greatest guys going around, Cripsy. How you going, mate?
Thanks, Jules. Thanks, Bucks. A little bit. I like that round of applause, Bucks. Like that. Very nice.
A bit louder.
Thank you. Look, it really was. You remind me of those that waiting period where I feel as though at the beginning, I think you guys from the social team were like, "Oh, what are we going to do with this?" And then after 4 or 5 weeks of me hassling, I think you guys came around and thought, you know what, you might have something here for us. And it was a blast. I love doing it. And you know, I appreciate the call up to be on the podcast as well. I've seen some very special guests. And I can't believe I'm on that list now. You know, I get to say I've been on the list, so I'm really excited. And I know lots of the pod. I've actually submitted my own eggs in the past. I haven't actually made it on the cast, which is really disappointing. But I can confirm that I've seen some great stuff, so I'm going to really enjoy this.
Excellent. You're lucky number 4 on that historic guest list, Cripsy. So
thank you.
we know a bit about you, but as for our guests, they might not. So introducing the 1 minute brief. Let's get stuck into it. Firstly, your nickname and why.
I actually a bit of a play on words from a younger age. My very first gamer tag was, I mean, this is embarrassing, but it was Master Space Snipe with a 3 instead of an E. I reckon I was probably about 12 when I made that. And then, so you can imagine the cringe as I grew up a little bit. I was like, this isn't great. And then I went to, I was thinking, Crispy, I don't know. I was like, I went to Cripsy. Lil Cripsy AU was my next. And then Cripsy AU, and now obviously known as Cripsy TV, just because you can watch me live kind of thing. So I thought TV sounded kind of cool. In hindsight, that's still a little bit cringe. I'd like Cripsy if possible, but you can imagine having a 5-word URL is really hard to get. So we'll have Cripsy TV for now until we buy the rights for Cripsy. That's what I say.
Sounds like that.
Tell Cripper.
Yeah.
It sounds like that first corny Hotmail everyone has.
mastersnipe@live.com.au with a 3 instead of yeah, that was it. That was exactly it.
Barks with an @ instead of an A. That's what his would have been, and a $sign instead of the S.
I
don't even know what mine was.
A 4 instead of an A. Yeah, I like that.
What's your job title for those that don't know?
I don't know. It's hard, right? Live entertainer, Amazon freelance video producer. I just call myself a live streamer. That's mine. Depends on which documents you like. Depends on what the title of the content is.
Yeah. This one might be a bit tricky, but you can have a bit of think of it if you need to. Favorite bit of content you've worked on?
Oh, wow, that's tough. Content that I've worked on.
Jules, did you not send our man this list before we go on live?
No, we've gone in straight in.
This is how I like it. I like it on the fly. Jules knows this. I actually will say I think my favorite content would have to be the Carlton stuff, and I think the reason I get to say that is because a lot of the people you work in the industry, in gaming or live streaming, for the most part, they're aware of how it kind of works behind the scenes, and they understand, that you're dealing with live, whether it's technical faults because a camera's not working or a microphone's not firing up or whatever. Whereas with the boys, the Carlton lads, the players themselves, and Jules knows what's going on, and he's in the calls with us, but the players don't maybe necessarily understand what's going on, and that free flow content that I tried to provide, at times felt like a challenge, just because I didn't want to pry too much, but I wanted to get some stuff that you just don't see. And I feel like in esports and gaming, people really want to put themselves out there, whereas I think the players just wanted to be themselves, and that ended up working in our favor, which I think anyway. And it really provided some great content, some great banter.
Yeah, agreed.
I can't argue with that. I think it was some of the best content we did.
Absolutely. All right.
No, thank you for talking it up. I've seen some of that stuff. It's good.
Last but not least, a non-work skill you rate yourself most in. Could be anything.
A non-work skill. Okay. I mean, I rate my barbecuing. I do rate my barbecuing. Nice. I think I'm a decent on the Webbecue. Get that going. Not sponsored, but just, but just I don't know. My dad's always been a barbecuer, and I got to watch him. You never take the tongs off the main chef,
no.
Right? But I got to watch. Every now and then I'd get, go get a beer or something, and I'd, get to turn the snags. But for the most part, I would say that my barbecue skills are all right. But I've got a long way to go.
Nice. That concludes the 1 minute brief. Don't know what this was.
I don't know what you're doing either. You're bowing. I guess, mate, now that we all know you a little bit better, and we're all friends here, everyone feels like they know a bit of Cripsy. But tell us how it all began, mate. Like, how'd you get into gaming, and then how'd you get into streaming? It's probably something that's a bit newer for when you talk about a content production type job, or whatever you might call it. But like, how did it all start for you?
How did it all start? So I'll start with the gaming stuff. I would have to say my very first memories of gaming would be FIFA 98 on the PC. It was the road to the World Cup. And I know Jules knows this story, but I'll gladly recap it as if he's never heard it, because it's a ripper, I think. And my dad, we had a PC. It was a Windows 95. It chugged along. You'd have the little dial-up, trying to send an email, and essentially we had FIFA, and he'd say, "Come and play," and we jump on. And he just beat me every single time, without a doubt. He knew every cheat, every little glitch, to the point where it'd be a goal kick with the keeper, and he would place his player in a particular spot, and it would always hit the player, and it would just come like back to him, and he'd score a goal. Like, it would, there was nothing I could do. It just ruined me, and that sort of drove me to want to win, like that. That sort of, I don't know, I was thinking about it. If that was 97, 98, I would have been 5 or 6. And that drove me to want to win at that age. And that was just against my dad, let alone my friends as I was growing up. I wanted to beat my friends in every game. And I don't know whether he meant that, but that is what happened to me. And so obviously as my age, I guess as I got older, I got new consoles. And I sort of joined competitive gaming in about 2009, 2010. We competed sort of around Australia, so Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. Then I decided I wanted to help do events, so help set up those events, which was really, really cool. It was a different type of thing because you're not playing, so you're dealing with players, you're dealing with tech, you're dealing with, I guess, setup. You're dealing with shutdown. You're dealing with so many things that you took for granted by being a competitor. You're now behind the scenes, and you're dealing with setup, with rules and organization, registration, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was a real eye opener to competitive and how all that works. And I think it was about 2017, I think it was, or 2018, I decided, I'd like to stream. I'd streamed in the past, but nothing seriously. I thought, why not? I'll fire it up one day and we'll give it a go. And I guess you say the rest is in history, because it's a long way to go for me and content and live content. But that's sort of where we were. And, I was in my parents' bedroom. I had a microphone attached to my headset, and it sounded like I was talking through a little metal tin. We had a webcam that was about 4 years old that was stuttering. And now we're running with some pretty cool equipment, which, it's just amazing to see that transformation in such a short time.
I guess that's it's such a cool story, because Bucks, I don't know about you, but I don't think my dad would be able to pick up any sort of computer game and play. Like, I had a hard enough time trying to get my dad to go out and have a kick with me, let alone jump on and play FIFA or AFL. So I think that's like such a cool thing that you guys can share, and then it's obviously shaped what you now do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing is he couldn't pick it up again. I'll tell you that right now. Ever since that, I think that was the last time he tried. He does like his other kind of games, Call of Duties and stuff. He does like that historical side of games. So a lot of those, a lot of the older Call of Duties actually, focused on, historical war and stuff like that. And he really enjoyed that because it was usually quite factual. Now it's all about modern warfare, and that kind of stuff doesn't interest him. So I think that's sort of that more. For him, it was, at the beginning, it was more of that education. We just happened to have FIFA, which I could play with him. Now I just beat my brother on the odd occasion, and anyone that takes me on, I try and give it my best.
My dad, to answer your question, Jules, my dad was big on Mario on Nintendo 64, the Gold Star, whatever the original, but he loved that. I reckon he'd still play to this day. We'll jump on this weekend. Let's throw it back.
Can I say, my parents, we used to have a 64 to play, Mario Kart. My mum would never let me race on Rainbow Road because she thought it would wreck my eyes. So I actually missed out on Rainbow Road. I used to sneak it in, like if they were like out of the room or something, I'd try and like get through, and they'd be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like, "Oh, sorry,
accidentally." I was doing
Rainbow
a cup and it just came up.
Yeah, it was Rainbow Road. Like, look at all these colors, that was my poor experience with Mario, but for the most part, it was pretty positive.
Usually it's like sneaky soft drink or like chocolate bars, and here it's rainbow. A level.
Rainbow Road. Like a kid in a candy store, just my eyes would light up like, oh my God, the colours.
The evil Rainbow Road. To follow up sort of that introduction, for anybody that sort of has zero knowledge of gaming as a career, can you sort of, I've got to follow up to this, but can you sort of summarise how playing video games can be a full-time career? Or a full-time job?
That's tough. I mean,
throw it at you.
So that's a tough question because there's so many aspects to gaming and then turning that into a career. So you could we'll look at it from a pure gaming perspective. If I just purely game, if I do no other content but game, for the most part, and this is sort of why I pass this on to the people that watch me. A lot of people say, why don't you play competitive anymore? And I think for the most part, playing the game competitively, you have to be in that top 0.001% of players to make it. And by making it, I mean, that's making it onto a team at an international level, let alone, challenging for trophies, titles, prize money, and whatnot. For me, I love, in what I do, there's a live chat. So I react to that chat. I read that chat. I talk to that chat. For me, it's a live experience, and that's what makes it live entertainment for me. Don't worry, anyone out there that wonders how gaming can get you anywhere, my parents said that for 3 years. Where's this going to take you? You get out of the house, get out of your room. And sometimes they still say it, but it's very rarely now where they say it. But it's certainly about where you take that. Do you take that into do you want to do live events, for example, as a gamer? You're like, cool, I want to participate in creating gaming live events. Go and study live event management. That's what I started to look at. I was like, cool, I want to do live entertainment, live events. Can I do an entertainment? Can I do management of that kind of stuff? For me, I hate school. I hated school forever. I got to year 10, I finished year 10 and I was out. I was done. Get me out of here. Whereas for other people, they're more driven. So that could be a route for them to look into gaming and still participate. You know, we have amazing expos and events here in Australia. I think of ESL, who do their big IEM events. You know, we have the big gaming expo at the exhibition center as well, we have Nintendo there, you have Xbox, you have PlayStation, you know, you have gaming companies that are creating the games, they're all there. It's a fantastic environment, and they're always looking for workers and staff. So even if you're not managing it, you're still participating in it from a staff level. So, I mean, even working at EB, I worked at EB Games for 4 years. You're dealing with customers, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with gamers for the most part, you know, people that love games. And for the majority of the time, 90% of the time, you're not even talking to them about what products there is. You're talking about what game's coming out next. So there's just so many avenues that gaming can take you. People want to create their own games, you know, which is unbelievable, you know. And here in Australia, they're working really hard to make that more viable as a job. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I feel like there's a bit of an understanding there that it just goes from just picking up a controller.
Yeah, I think it does answer the question. Follow up though, is there a common misunderstanding to it?
Before streaming, I was just playing games. I think you know, between that competitive era to being a part of events, in that period that I was just playing the games, I was just playing games. Is that a misconception that people can play games and that's a bad thing? No, but it's more so that is it constructive to your life anyway? Is it a pressure valve that you can play a couple of games a night and it just releases everything? The tension goes from your work day or whatever it is, and you can sit down. I think people maybe the misconception of gaming is that you have to be a nerd and you have to sit at a desk and you have to play video games for 6 hours. For the most people, they've got a game on their phone that they play on a casual level. You know, like think about Snake. Snake was the most earliest form of competitive gaming that we ever had, like in our hands. You know, we played Snake, and you know, it's always been there in one form or another. The question is, you know, do people even think about that as, oh, I don't game, but I play Candy Crush? You know, like, oh, so you do game. That is gaming. You know, it is gaming.
That's unreal to think of it in that perspective. Yeah, because like, Barks, you jump on COD every now and then, but you probably wouldn't think of it as yourself as a gamer. Like, I mean, you're right. It's like a misconception misdefinition maybe.
Yeah, maybe a misdefinition. Barks is now like, oh my god, I don't want to be named as a gamer. Like, he's going to have to change his like bio, gamer. I mean, you know,
I'll gladly
does it.
Yeah, I'll gladly say like I'm a gamer. Like, there's been multiple times Jules will know, like, can you shut up? Like, I'm trying to have a lunchtime pod session.
Well, I think the interesting thing to this, just on that, is you wouldn't say that. For example, we had Sam Walsh. We had Setters and all the Carlton lads. They all play games. Did they not? Like they were all gaming, but you wouldn't say, oh, Mitch McGovern's a gamer. No, he's a football player, but he games. He loves games. You know, he loves the game.
It's that release that you were talking about. You're so right. It's like they come home and they still competitive, but they don't want to be like competitive in a different way, I guess.
Yeah,
like they're
competitive to their close circle, as opposed to on the leaderboards.
I guess like this has always been a question of mine, and I've got to admit I'm not a gamer. I'm completely the opposite way. Like, I don't even have a game on my phone. I think the closest thing I have to a game is a calculator. But
Jesus Christ.
If you type some things in the calculator, turn upside down.
Yeah, it can be fun.
That's fun. Yeah, it's a game.
Nah, but that made me sound like a real loser. But I guess I've tuned into your stream, and what I love about watching your stream is that you just lose the fact that it's a gaming stream. You kind of you forget about that. And I've watched you play FIFA. I've watched you commentate AFL Live. I've watched you now unbox playing cards. So
yeah.
I want to know, like, what's your approach to content, and how do you kind of keep it fresh to keep those thousands of people coming back regularly and just tuning in?
That's so tough because there's so many trends that occur. We talk about, my staple is FIFA, and people know me as a FIFA streamer, and breaking from that shackle, I guess, of people know me as that. And you touched on the AFL stuff. We commentated on the grand final. We commentated. We watched AFL games. We didn't have the content being broadcasted, but we were sort of co-casting it. How do you keep that fresh? How do you keep that different? I guess the thing for me is that what I find enjoyable makes it easier for me to read the chat and try and make it as enjoyable for them, even if it's content they don't understand. So for me, I don't say this lightly. I think I'm actually quite good at FIFA in the sense that I don't have to focus too hard to have a good time, or win. I get to sort of, that is almost for me what happens in the background. It's what happens in the chat that makes it really, for me, what makes my experience as a streamer. It makes the experience for me even better. So if I'm playing a game like Call of Duty, there's something that's new to me, I actually get less time to have fun because I'm focusing on what's happening. And that's with the playing cards as well. You talked about the playing cards. We open boxes of cards, which who would have thought that would happen? And we sort of, that's that. It's different. It's fresh enough. I understand. I can take it at my own pace too, which I think is really cool. I can dictate the pace of what's going on with different pieces of content. And as I said, there's games that people say, "Oh, can you jump on?" I'm like, "Oh man, that changes my perception of the content that I can provide," I guess.
Yeah. So I guess it's about, you have to enjoy it to then produce enjoyable content for everyone else, right? That's what it comes down to.
I think that'd be most streamers that would say the same thing. Yeah. I mean, even for you guys, right? You're creating content, and I'm sure that there's parts of content that you're like, man, we really have to do this, even if we don't really want to, AKA, whether it's certain articles or whatever it is. However, when you're doing the really cool puff stuff, and I've mentioned this before privately to you guys, but the content that was provided over lockdown for us in Victoria, but you guys did up in the hub, was massive for us as fans at home. That was for you guys. That would have felt like an everyday, may have even felt like a little bit, maybe not a chore, but challenging at times because you're away from home. However, for us as fans, that insight and that content was unbelievable because that's what we had. We were stuck, we were stuck inside. So that was a really, that would be an example, I think, for you guys. There's stuff you don't enjoy as much, and there's the stuff that you can just let loose on.
Yeah,
it's a good way to sort of explain it to, I love hearing the different side of, we didn't come on this to talk about Carlton, but the different side of what we produce to how it comes across.
Cripsy, I guess we touched on it a little bit as well, talking about, you helped us out, but this year particularly we saw more and more sports teams getting involved in Twitch and game streaming as a whole. What are your feelings towards that and the content that we kind of pull from having athletes involved? Do you think it detracts from Twitch as a platform, or do you think it adds to Twitch as a platform?
I think it really depends on the sport and how they approach it. I think that for a lot of sports that in America, I'll go with America on this one. A lot of their NFL stuff they actually do on Twitch, that you can actually watch the game live on Twitch. There's a few games a week they choose, whether it's one or two. I can't remember how many. I'm not a huge fan myself. However, you're getting this. I guess you've got people on a website that may not watch sport. They're obviously on this website while not watching the sport on another platform, whether that's through a streaming service or anything like that. They're not in the lounge room with their parents or whatever it is. They're on Twitch. So they're looking for a younger demographic in their eyes to see their content and see the future of the sport. Or help grow the future of the sport, I suppose. I think it really comes down to what the goal is. I really think that if players of teams, for example, want to get involved in a gaming level and they're gamers, I think that's really good stuff, and they want to, they want to put that sort of mixture in of who they are as a person or as a personality and with what kind of game they like to play. But I feel like there's certainly seen times where you sort of see people really stretching the mark and stretching that sort of blending. There's someone that probably doesn't want to be there, or they don't really game, but they see a potential with the young audience or a younger audience. And there's times where it just doesn't blend, and it has to be the right. I think it has to be the right mixture. You've got to have the hosts that understand it. You have to have the maybe the players or the player that does game, and they're in their comfort zone, I guess. And finding that middle ground can be really tricky because there's so many different personalities of play and there's so many things at play. However, like you look, I think you see NBA. I think golf is doing it as well. Like the NBA did their league thing. Golf. So the PGA had the actual golf players playing in tournaments as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's, and I guess you see the F1's another level. The way F1 do it, and I've mentioned this to you guys privately, with your content ladder. I actually think the F1s do it unbelievably. They have this. I don't know. Maybe they're not restricted by, the worldwide restrictions because there's some broadcasts that you can't see, like the Premier League stuff you can't see on Twitter because we're in Australia. But F1 just seems to be global, and I can jump on Facebook the next morning and I can watch a 5-minute highlights package of what happened the race 6 hours beforehand. The way the F1 content happens is so easily accessible that anyone can watch it. Whether the players are actually racing in the cars or they actually were racing on Twitch at the same, it was unbelievable banter. It was unbelievable content because the racers all know each other and they race. They race on the F1s in the simulators anyway. So the content's so easily blended for so many ways. So that's the tricky bit, is how do you blend it so it doesn't feel awkward?
I think that there's two good points in there. It's number one, you've got to have people that are deadly keen on being part of it. Actually, there's 3 good points. You've got to have a great host. I think we talked about that throughout the year, that was part of the difference between, again, not to pump up Carlton, but that was part of the difference of our stream compared to perhaps any other team stream, is that rather than just let the players go and people can watch it, you've got to have it comes back down to that engagement. And if the content is not engaged, if people can't get engaged with the content and the players, then you kind of lose out. And the third is, of course, access. Like if you can provide more access than people get on regularly on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or where else they're consuming, of course, they're going to make that switch over to a platform where they can talk to the players or they can get this other insight into them. So yeah, I think athletes, in my perspective, I would love to see more Twitch stuff get done, but not in a way where it bastardizes it in any way.
That's the tricky bit, though, right? Is how do you make that happen? I think as well, it's easy to forget that the players or a player or a personality, they have their own life. It's so, I think as a fan, I'll use Carlton because I'm a huge fan, and you see these guys, go out there for 120 minutes, a week, and they're knackered, and they're training 3-4 times a week. They're knackered. Mentally, they're knackered too. They're doing their coaching stuff, they're doing their board stuff, and you want them to do more in a way because it's that it's really positive and it's really awesome reinforcement to the fans and especially the young players. They love the youngsters. They love they love their heroes out and about and they love getting pictures or whatever. But it's so hard to find that balance because they've got a life as well. And that's the really, again, that work-life balance would be even trickier at that. I think that higher level.
Yeah, not wrong.
One thing I enjoy with this sort of talking about athletes doing it, and I guess specifically like your Mitch Robinsons, there's Anthony Drumick for the NBL.
Yes.
Plenty of people in the States. I think Ben Simmons even does a bit of it. I find it really interesting to sort of jump on. And I think you talked about it before, Cripsy. You like the engagement. You like talking to people. It's almost like a bit of a live show as opposed to what you're actually playing. And you did it with Walshy and Setters as well, how you actually get to find out a different side of the players and athletes that you wouldn't normally. Like I've tuned into Ben Simmons, whoever it might be from the NBA, purely just to I don't care about the game they're playing, just to see that side of them. Like that's a space that's growing, and that speaking from someone who's obsessed with basketball, I love tuning in purely for the person.
Yeah, I think I'll go on Robbo here, just because I've seen a bit of his work and I'm a bit of a man crush. He played enough games for us, right? I can appreciate him. But I think the way Robbo does it, and I think it's tough too for players, because you can have a stinker of a week. You know, you can have a stinker weekend, you know, and then you chuck on the live stream on a Tuesday afternoon or whatever after training, and the first comment is, geez, that was a rubbish performance, you know, or what was that, you know, like, you know, I think that's really tricky. You know, maybe for a sport like the NBA, for example, there's so many comments that fly in, is they don't just stick. I think, you know, when you're doing AFL, and it's not a disrespect to Robbo, this is just where, so the AFL is on a global scale, is that, you know, you'd have enough time to read a lot of the comments, you know, because, you know, and that's where it might get tricky. And that's when it kind of, you know, at the end of the day, for the majority of it is banter. But it still stings. You know, that stuff can still sting if it builds up enough. So yeah, I think it's, for Robbo, the way he's done the transition is really good. And I know that I think his podcast, he has his own podcast that he does when COVID wasn't on, that he was getting exclusive access to, you know, the high end, some of the upper echelon of players, you know, and you're getting these really different views. I think he had Crips on at one point, and you know, how he pulled that off, I don't know. There must have been some money deals or something going on there to get his some time. But that's, I guess for him, that's the great. I mean, I don't know if you remember, we had Razor Ray Chamberlain. We had Razor Ray, so Robbo streaming AFL. We're doing a commentary with him and I think it was a Collingwood player, I can't remember his name, Myercheck. So it was Mitch Robinson versus Brody Myercheck. They were playing. I was commentating with another, his name was Twisty, and we were commentating this game, trying to get them bantering. At the end of the game, and then we're like, oh, Razor Ray, and Robbo goes, I'm going to ring Razor Ray right now. And he got Razor Ray on a FaceTime live on Twitch, and obviously, you know, the media dictates how Razor's seen, I think. Yeah. And I think there's a few commentators that don't really rate Razor or think that his personality is a bit over the top. At the end of the day, what I saw of Razor was no different to what you would see on the field, and the banter was fantastic. It just shows that that's the type of person he is, and it's actually no different on the field. And I had a huge level of respect. Sort of more so when I saw that it wasn't a show. It was purely, that is Razor as a human being. And we need to see more of that of our umpires. And I talk about our umpires in AFL. I think all umpires and all referees in sport deserve the utmost respect. But seeing it at a different angle just shows you that they are human, and they are deserving of the respect. Whether they get a decision right or wrong, you know, that happens, things happen, but it was just one of those moments for me. I was like, you can't get this anywhere else. This is live at its best. This is gaming. This is content that you cannot get anywhere else. Try and tell me that some player on a field would call Razor at the end of a game and get him on the interview. No way. You know, like,
maybe just to abuse him, but that's about it.
Yeah, the odd text message, you know, and hearing that from Robbo saying, you know, we are friends with not only just, you know, we are friends with these guys. You know, we are friends with opposition players, and we know that. But hearing that is different to hearing that from a player is different to the media, I guess, circus.
Yeah, it's an important thing to sort of touch on the person behind it. But there's a throwaway comment that I said to Jules the other week about getting David Roden on purely because everybody loves the way he goes about his goal. He doesn't, nothing to do with content, but let's have David Roden on. But,
we could do a best five, top five, surely. Top five David Roden moments. I mean, again, that's the flair, right? And surely there would have been discussions, you know, from an AFL level being like, is that professional? You know, is that appropriate? And it's like, why can't it be? He was loved as a player, at least, well, I would think so. And why can't that personality, he obviously enjoys being a part of footy. Why can't we embrace that? Even though it's a different way, we're still embracing that, and I think that's a great part of the culture of footy.
I wholeheartedly agree. Jules, you look like you've got something to say.
No, I'm just bloody enjoying the chat box. This is my enjoyment face. You don't see it very often.
What is that? What are you doing over there? Well, I
think it's called smiling.
I'm sorry to cut your enjoyment, Jules, but we've stolen enough of Cripsy's time, so I'm going to wrap us up by saying a massive thank you. I've personally, I thought I knew a bit about you, but it's very interesting to see what goes on and what your world's about. So thank you for being a guest on the Content Catchup.
Barks, Jules, thank you very much. Love me some content ladder. All right, I want to see the F1s in there. As I said, love that. Some more eggs. Again, my suggestion was shut down, but I will once again in the future refer that.
Do you want to quickly give it? Do you want to quickly give it to the viewers before you go?
I'll give it to Big Fev. I'm a big Carlton man, and I tell you what, the Big Fev had a moment on Twitter. I can't even remember. I blocked it out. It was that brutal.
It was the Simo and Cruz retirement.
Okay. I'm getting deep on this one.
He's back.
You've set me off. You've set me off. So, as a big Carlton man, Cruz my number one player. He was my. I don't know. I just loved it. I loved it. I don't know. I love skinny Lappin before him. So the short, skinny, and then the tall and monstrous. And Cruz came in, and I was like, I love this man from the beginning. And obviously, Cruz had an incredible career. Unfortunately, a lot of injuries along the way. And Cade Simpson, obviously, sixth all-time, fourth all-time, most games.
Fourth all-time, I think, yeah.
At Carlton, an unbelievable warrior, one of the all-time greats, I'll say, at Carlton footy. And they obviously retired at the end of the year, and Big Feb goes something along the lines of, how could Cruz and Simo walk off together, or something like that. One's been, obviously injured, but the other one's been a great. And I was just like, I was so angry because Fev knows footy culture. Fev knows how that works. And I mean, I don't know Simo personally, but I know that he would have wanted that. Because they were at the club together for so long. They Simo, 2003, maybe, I'm just guessing. And I'm going Cruz, 2007. I'm guessing here at that point. I'm saying they've been through highs and lows. They've played finals together, they've won wooden spoons together. They've been in that journey. And then Fev to come out and basically say, why is Cruz walking off with Simo? Absolutely just tore me apart. And I commented and he blocked me. And that was my submission for Egg of the Week. It was embarrassing. And the next morning he woke up, he deleted the comment and he said, my Twitter was hacked or something like that. But I was just like, I'm so disappointed. And it really hurt me to hear that from someone that we idolized, I guess, and we love so much. So that was my Egg of the Week. And you know what? For this week, that's my Egg of the Week.
There you go. Our first ever guest Egg of the Week, Bart. We're rewriting it.
I'm about 3 months late, but I love it. All right? So that's my Egg of the Week. He doesn't even have an egg, but he's getting one.
We'll have to re-record our voiceover dude Pete saying guest Egg of the Week.
In all seriousness, thanks Jules and Barks. I really appreciate the opportunity. I love it. Maybe in the future we'll get to do it again in maybe a different format. We can do it over a coffee or a hot chocolate or a boost smoothie, whatever sort of goes on down your way. Out here it's
morning beer didn't really go down too well.
It was not a beer, but I thought it's been a great start. Imagine me spilling it all over.
On you, Cripsy. Thanks so much for joining us, mate.
Thanks,
Take care.